there for 7 years, so you can imagine lots of wonderful memories. If I was going to pick any, I would say I had probably two real strong memories. One was the return match in Istanbul against Galatasaray in the Europa League. We played a really tough game. We had to defend a lot, suffer a lot in a really hostile environment. The supporters there in Istanbul are amazing, and we managed to go through to beat Galatasaray over 2 games. And you can imagine the response for the home team was really, really aggressive. Their supporters were very volatile in there, and they were quite quick at letting the team Galatasaray know that they were disappointed. But eventually, then they started to clap. They started to clap us, and we ended up having a bit of a lap around the pitch there with the supporters clapping us, which I don't think is they were telling us that has not happened before. So that was a really goosebump moment. And then, of course, the celebrations in the changing room afterwards were special. And then the second real highlight from a football perspective was the home match against PAOK. We were 3-1 down from the first leg. We had to win 2-0, and that was to actually get into the Europa League. So it was the final qualification match, and yeah, it was just a special night. We ended up winning 2-0. The atmosphere and in the ground and the feeling of what we'd achieved was amazing. So yeah, luckily enough, my eldest was on the pitch afterwards and did a lap of honour. It was just a nice moment, and felt really proud that you can be part of that experience, help the club, certainly in the short and medium term. And yeah, just that probably those two are the main football memories. And then off the pitches, lots of friends and all that special memories that I have. I would say that the tactical differences from Sweden to the UK. Well, we went from Allsvenskan to the Championship. So the Championship itself is such a tough league. The amount of games you play, you go from playing 30 in Allsvenskan to, I think, 46 in the Championship. So just the intensity of the competition is the real big difference. Tactically, the ball goes in the box, I think, a lot more in England. It's probably a bit more direct, a bit more physical. And in Sweden, because of also the nature of the 4G pitches, sometimes the game is a bit more tactical and technical. But I would say more so the physical element in the UK and the amount of games and the fact that the crowd is so much in the game means that's the big difference. I think it'd be fair to say that we didn't really know how long we'd be out there. I think we initially signed a 3-year contract. So we were working, especially as football is, you think, well, if we get to 3 years, bearing in mind the club had sort of changed manager every year for the previous 3 or 4 seasons. So we were thinking if we can get to the end of our contract, at least we'd have had an experience, at least something to put on the CV, and then you never know. Yeah, and at the same time, we had high hopes that we could achieve something and we could do something special, because that was the whole point of going over there. It wasn't just to have a job. So it was a tricky situation to go over there and experience the negativity at first, but in the end, yeah, like I said, a wonderful experience. And then I suppose as you're there longer and longer, and you end up that Sweden becomes your home and Östersund becomes your home, then it was just plan to try to do your best and develop the club. And so there wasn't any then return date. I think then it changed a bit then once you're over and you can see the possibility of the club and fall in love with the place and the town. Then it was there was no plan. There was certainly no plan to get into the Europa League or to do what we did. It just happened, and I think that was a nice thing. I suppose the key thing to think about is that you always have to adapt to the players and to the environment and the context that you're working in. And when I first went over to Sweden, the team was in the 4th tier, had just been relegated. So the real focus was about getting players to enjoy playing football, to not be worried so much about results, to try to feel part of something that we were trying to create. So it was a lot about enjoyment in those early stages. So a lot of the sessions were about that, focused on that, about not necessarily about necessarily a tactical focus, but that certainly grew as we went forward into our time in Sweden and started to understand, okay, what are our advantages. So then when you move into Swansea, the games program, as I said earlier, is so massive that the training time is less. You go from 30 matches to 46 matches. So again, you have to adapt to that. Back into the Premier League, where there's less games again, it's a bit more like it was in Sweden. So from a periodization perspective, you have to make sure that you alter and adapt to the games. But in terms of style, I think we've just moved from, like I said, towards a more now sessions are designed towards either learning from what we've done, improving what we've done, and preparing the next game. I think slowly that's been the change over the years. We refer to the game in Istanbul. We were 2-0 up from the first game. So, we had an advantage, but going there with the crowd, with the hostility that is Galatasaray, we knew that we had to score. So we've beforehand had an idea about how we wanted to play. We wanted to try to play. We wanted to try to do what we did in the home game. We wanted to try to have the ball and create and play our game. At the same time, we needed to understand also that we were going to have to suffer in the game as well. So we had to have a defensive organisation that if we weren't able to play the game we wanted to play, then there was still a foundation there to work from. And it quickly transpired in the game that it was going to be a really tough game. They played really well. They pushed us back, and we had to defend. We had to defend low. We had to defend our box. And thankfully, we managed to do that. We scored a goal penalty from our captain and got through. And after the game, I spoke to him, and he was a typical possession player. He would say very much focused with the ball. Very much that's how he wanted to play football. Big fan of the Barcelona style, and he identified himself a lot with the ball and possession. And I spoke to him after that game and asked him about how he felt about the game, and he said it was his best game he's ever played. And I was like, well, we had 28% of the ball, I think, or maybe less than that, and that's not your type of game. And he was like, no, but I understood that we needed to suffer, we had to defend, and we had to go through, and that's why it was like the most satisfying thing for him. So that was nice that he'd gone through that change, I suppose, and understanding that football is, again, about balance. It's about attacking, defending, transitioning. It's about doing all the things, regardless of whether you've got one aspect that you favour or one aspect that you're going to try to do more of. Still, you have to respect the game enough to know that you need to be good in all those areas. And that's the thing I think that me and him learned together collectively over the time, that it was important to have that balance. You have to go onto the pitch believing that you can win. There's a possibility that you can win. I always say that, and we should always have a plan that helps us achieve that. But at the same time, that it's football, and the plan is just a bit of information gathered from the past. It doesn't guarantee how it's going to be in the future. You can't predict the match exactly. So you have to be humble enough to know that you might not be able to have as much ball as you'd like. You might not be able to create as many chances as you'd like, but you still need to be able to stay in the game, be hard to beat, be resilient, all those words that we can use. Because like I said, the word again, balance, you need that balance to be able to achieve anything in football. At the university, University of Hull, I was friends with Graham Jones. He was working with Roberto Martinez, so I was lucky enough to watch those guys work. And while they're at Swansea, I saw the start of the project that they had there in terms of the identity that they're trying to create and how they wanted to play football in the lower leagues, going about it a slightly different way. So I think that was a fascinating thing to see from a distance at a time where I was, I suppose, learning and wanted to gain as many influences as I could. So I think in the early days, Roberto and Graham were two that I got inspiration from, and then and I think the other one that springs to mind, certainly that phase of my life, was Pep Guardiola at Barcelona. Just seeing the effect that he had on that team and on football, and obviously I followed his career since. For us, isn't necessarily have most possession. It's about trying to win the game. That's what we're trying to do, and then in order to do that, you probably have to have an idea about what you're doing when you're attacking, and then also what you're doing when you're defending, because in football you can't guarantee that you're going to be always attacking. You might want to do that, but it's impossible. So you have to have an understanding also of how you're defending and respect the opposition, respect football. That sometimes the games, you have to defend. Maybe you can't do what you want to do. You have to have a defensive structure and understand that that's as important. In fact, some would argue more important than the other stuff. But in football, if you haven't got that balance, then it's hard to achieve anything. So then the idea, regardless of who you play, doesn't necessarily change in terms of you need to be prepared in all the areas of the game. And then football is what it is. It's a wonderful sport. You can't predict it so much. And you have to be able to adapt and take decisions when the game's going. The challenge for us as coaches is that we have to convince the players that their ideas are good for them, can help them improve, and ultimately can help their performance and get the results we want to get. So that's the challenge. That's what we're all faced with, regardless of what the level is. And then I always think that for somebody to listen to you, they have to have a connection with you on a human level, on a personal level. They have to believe that you're there to help them, believe that your intentions are good, your motivations are sincere, and you're there to support them, and you want to do the right thing by them and the team. So that's always the foundation, I think, that can help. And then of course you need the specific information, the sport specific information that again they go, okay, this is helping me. I can get this. I can understand this. This is a reference that I can use to go out to the pitch and to make my decisions. So I think those are the things to consider. And then I always think that you've got to adapt to the players, because they're the ones playing the game. It's not they're not there to necessarily serve my interests or my ideas. We've got to come with a collective idea, collective reference that they all buy into, or we can all understand, and collectively we go forward. And within that, you have to look at the strengths and the attributes of the players that you have, because that's a good way for them to come with you. I would say the last couple of years since returning to the UK, it's been quite full on in terms of adapting to new clubs and new leagues and new home situations. That is probably an area that I've neglected my own development to a certain extent. At the same time, I would caveat that with the fact that I've been in these new situations and these new competitions and meeting new players, that's been a real learning and development experience for me. I think I've grown a lot and I've learned a lot over the last couple of years. But I think it's also important to step outside of your own bubble, if you like, and just to take that time. And when I have done that, I've tried to exercise, even though not as much as I would like. I've tried to read although not as much as I would like, and I've done a bit of meditation as well. Again, maybe not as much as I would like, but they're probably the three things that I try to do for my own development, for my own sanity, if you like, just to escape from the pressures of the job, and also just to provide that bit of time to think and reflect and to put things in perspective. You can often be in an unstable position because you're thinking about attacking, you're thinking about scoring. So in terms of how we think about that, it's firstly to try to have a good structure when you're building your attacks. There's a good structure in your possession, so that if the mistake does happen or the turnover happens, you're in a good position as a team to deal with that. So that's about positional play, I suppose. And then the next bit is the attitude and the thinking when the turnover happens. Are you thinking about the mistake? Are you thinking about what you maybe should have done? Or are you thinking about the fact that the game's turned over, it's now in a new situation and another action needs to happen, and you're thinking about that? So there's an important aspect to consider there. And then the rest is about, okay, how quickly do you get back into your defensive structure based on the principles that you have as a team? I suppose the most difficult part of the game is to attack, and as you get better, teams maybe defend with more numbers, and they defend with you have to attack less space, and you're having to defend big spaces. So that's a really challenging part of the game, and I think that's why that thinking, that understanding that is the challenge, and you have to respond in a good way when that mistake happens is vital to get the initial reaction. Well, firstly, I'll come in, consult with my assistant coaches, ask them what they've seen, ask them for their thoughts and their observations. Take a moment to reflect on those, and then to maybe discuss, okay, what's the plan, what's the initial messages at half time to start to put that plan in place if there needs to be something changed, or whether we just continue with what we're doing. And then once we've got that formulated amongst ourselves, I'll generally address the group, keep it quite brief, try to make 2 or 3 points. At the same time, my assistants and analysts will have maybe picked out some clips or footage from the game that reinforces those points. Make the points, whether it's a tactical point or sometimes an emotional point, depending on what's required. And then, like I said, the guys will go around, check the understanding, check the at an individual level, everybody's okay. Any queries, they can do that then. And I think at half time, and it's a time where you can use emotion, because you can. There's still another half to play. There's still something you can do. You might have to change the dynamic, the attitude, the thinking. So it's a really important tool. I suppose just by asking the question, there's a chance that you can be used the wrong way, and you can be too emotional and not thinking clearly, and the message gets diluted in an angry state or an emotional state. So it's about controlling that. I think that's where you need that time just to reflect, just to try and get some objectivity and some perspective in terms of what's happened, and then always have the tool, if you like, up your sleeve, that if you need to affect things and speak in an emotional way, because that's how the game is sometimes, then you can do that in a way. It's always should be to try to help the team and improve the team and help us win. It shouldn't be just to serve your own purpose, to get rid of some. We live in a world sometimes where you know, as the coach and the leader, you're meant to show this clarity and strength, and you got all the answers and you know everything type of stuff, and everything's so clear for you. But the reality of it is we're human beings as well, and there's certainly from my perspective self-doubt often. because you don't know how things are going to go, and that leaves you with a sense of vulnerability, I suppose. And I think that's natural and normal. But the key thing is, as long as your motivation is good, as long as your intentions are good, you're there to help the players, you want to do your best, you're trying to help the situation, then whatever happens, even if you fail, there are learning. There's things that you can use, that you can develop from, and I think that's always how I've tried to think about things whenever I have those moments. It's about what's my perspective of this situation, remind myself of that, remind myself of my intention, remind myself of my motivations, and that I'm doing my best, and then make sure I take that next step forward and try to learn from whatever experience happens, whatever situation happens, try to become a better coach, a better person. And then the self-doubt, okay, it might still be there, but you can use it. It's a way also that it keeps you in check. It keeps you not thinking that you've got all the answers, not thinking that you know everything. This game is a brilliant game for that, in terms of just when you think you've got things sussed out, it can come and kick you in the backside. So no, I think it's something that I have often, and I think it's quite a common, normal human trait as well.